Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta, and welcome to Industry Beacon, where we shine a light on the trailblazers, the disruptors, and the industry leaders shaping our future. And in each episode, we'll explore how they're staying ahead in their respective fields, one industry at a time. Now, joining us today is Paolo Borromeo, the president and CEO of Ayala Healthcare Holdings, or AC Health, a company leading the charge in revolutionizing medical services in the Philippines. Under his leadership, AC Health has launched groundbreaking initiatives to improve access to care, including expanding digital services and building specialized facilities like the Healthway Cancer Care Hospital. With a clear vision and a deep understanding of the industry, Paolo will share his thoughts on the biggest challenges, emerging opportunities, and the innovations shaping the future of medical care in the country. Paolo, welcome.
Hi, Mikey. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so the Philippines is known for having, some of the best healthcare providers in the world. But when it comes to infrastructure locally and financing and growth in our own home court, there are some unique challenges. Can you tell us, give us the lay of the land? What is this industry like right now in 2024?
Yeah, well, I look at the healthcare industry as an investor and, of course, as a practitioner, although I'm not a doctor, Mikey. Yeah? But we look at healthcare. It's one of the fastest growing sectors in the country. We compare it to other industries like oil and gas, consumer, retail, etc. And over the last 5 years, it's grown 10, 11%. And we're looking at growth of 9 to 10% over the next few years. Mm-hmm. If I'm not mistaken, we're second highest in Southeast Asia among countries in terms of healthcare expenditure growth, which is huge. Mm-hmm. So I think it's exciting. We've come a long way. Obviously, government has helped push the agenda forward. Healthcare is always top priority for governments, including this administration. Mm-hmm. We've passed many landmark bills, the Universal Healthcare Law, the Cancer Care Act. And so what it's created is it's stimulated healthcare spending and healthcare utilization. Mm-hmm. And then you add the pandemic, and clearly everyone...
That helped boost your growth.
Well, yes, because obviously it put healthcare in the spotlight. Mm-hmm. And more importantly, I think it gave the ordinary Filipinos more awareness, significantly more awareness, and more responsibility about their healthcare. So now more than ever, I think Pinoys are more conscious about their families and their need for healthcare. Absolutely.
Okay, now growth of about 9 to 11% annually. Mm-hmm. What does that tell you about this industry?
I think it tells me that there's increasing utilization. Of course, there's inflation, but behind the inflation is increasing utilization. So what that means is people are getting themselves checked. People are going to the doctor, getting themselves diagnosed, getting themselves getting their blood checked, getting their x-rays, which is an important thing. So I think that tells me that people are more and more, families mm-hmm. are becoming more and more responsible for taking care of their health.
They've become much more cognizant, especially in the wake of the pandemic. On two fronts, financing and infrastructure, where would you say we are?
Oh, great question. I think, to be honest, I think we're still way behind where we're supposed to be. And this is something that we tackle at the Private Sector Advisory Council for Health for President Marcos, which I chair. Mm-hmm. And we meet regularly, and in many of our meetings, if not all of our meetings, the first thing we talk about is the lack of resources. I call that health human resources.
Okay, so people.
We're needing nurses, we're needing doctors, we're needing pharmacists, we're needing allied professionals. One of our first agenda items with the president was to tackle the nursing issue, which was massive, especially coming out of the pandemic. Countries were recruiting thousands and thousands of our nurses. Yeah. And so what happens is we're left here with quite a bit of a shortage. And so together with the government and with CHED and DOH, we created different initiatives to try to improve the pipeline of nurses coming into the system.
And how do you incentivize them to stay?
Well, I think it's a difficult thing. You can never compete salary-wise.
Yeah.
When the US, Singapore, Japan, they're offering 4, 5, 6 times what we can offer. Mm-hmm. We've tried to bump up the compensation locally, both public and private. But at the end of the day, hindi mo kaya eh. Yeah. So you compete on other levels. You compete by creating an environment that hopefully is conducive for them to stay, benefits that make it nice for them to stay. But otherwise, it's hard to compete on a daily basis. So I tell the president that. We also say that kulang tayo sa, I mean, we still lack facilities. So in terms of number of beds, we're quite short. If I remember correctly, I said we would need about 200,000 more beds. And if you think about it as 100-bed hospitals, that means 2,000 hospitals that we would need.
Yeah.
The gap is very, varies greatly depending on the geography. Metro Manila's better off because we have quite a bunch of hospitals here, right?
Yeah, the concentration of the
Right.
best medical care
Cebu is
in this-
okay,
yeah.
Dabao's a little bit okay, but if you go, as you go to the more far-flung places, dyan medyo tayo nahihirapan. And so we need to build more capacity in those areas, what we call geographically isolated areas. And in many cases, it has to be a public-private partnership because private cannot do it, public cannot do it alone. And so where there are opportunities to work together.
Yeah. Speaking of
We'll work
geographic
together.
areas, in terms of the top illnesses here in the country for
Yes.
Filipinos, some of the top ones that you mentioned earlier when we were talking before the cameras were rolling were HIV and cancer. And you said that cancer is it's a different kind of cancer depending on the geographic location. You're
Yes.
saying that in Australia it's skin cancer,
Yes.
but here it is breast and lung.
Yes.
Tell us more about what you're learning out at the forefront.
Well, I'm so thrilled. We just opened the country's first cancer-only hospital in Arca South, in Taguig. It's 100 beds, and it's state-of-the-art equipment. We've partnered with different leading manufacturers, pharmaceutical companies. It's world-class. We've partnered with the National Cancer Center of Singapore, with City of Hope in the US. But our goal is to try to keep the costs as manageable as possible. No?
That is the challenge.
But cancer, because cancer is a big problem, Mikey.
Yeah.
In the Philippines, we have 180,000 new cases per year,
Yeah.
right? And I anticipate that that's kulang. There's a lot more that we have
Not even detected.
identified because people are not
Yeah.
screening as often as they should or as early as they should. So those, unfortunately, the 180,000 cases that we do screen, many of them are late stage. No? Many of them are very complicated.
Okay.
And because many of our fellow Filipinos cannot either access or cannot afford, a lot of them choose not to get treated anymore. No?
How
So it's a sad
important is the
state.
screening, and what would basic screening set you back by at your cancer care hospital?
Well, screening is very important. You know, we encourage early screening for everyone of all ages. We have different protocols, but for instance, if you're male, 45 years old, we encourage you to get checked for colorectal cancer. If you have a family history, for instance, of breast or lung, we encourage screening as well. You know, we've partnered with some innovative technologies, Mikey. So for instance, for lung cancer screening, low-dose chest CT scan is upwards of 10 grand, right? Which is probably one of the more affordable rates in the country. But still, it's fairly prohibitive, right? $200 for a fellow
especially for
Filipinos.
minimum wage earners.
Right.
Yeah.
But what we can do is we now do chest x-rays, and we're piloting this nice AI tool called Cure AI, which helps diagnose or detect possible cases just with chest x-rays
Wow.
that we can then filter through and recommend for a CT scan.
What are the most exciting technological advances on this front that will, you know, make all these treatments more affordable?
Aye,
What are you most
cancer's-
excited about?
I'm very excited about cancer. You know, I keep on saying, imagine the development in oncology compared to like 20 or 30 years ago. Just the pace of development is huge. You're talking about new treatment protocols, new therapies. The field of pathology with next generation sequencing, we're able to detect what kind of tumor specifically, what algorithm. You have new blood transfusion methodologies. So ang dami. And so that excites me because what we really want to do is, well, first, of course, help cure cancer. But at the same time, take the stigma away. No, so if you do get diagnosed with cancer, it's not a death sentence.
Yeah.
There are many new therapies, immunotherapy, chemotherapy. The field of radiation therapy is also quickly developing. So it's exciting. To me, the kayang labanan, right? We can fight cancer.
Yeah.
And the important thing is that Number one, we detect early, we screen frequently, and more importantly, that we all work together because no one group can do it alone.
Yeah, and the next thing would be financing. And Paolo, you're also the chairman of the Private Sector Advisory Council, or PSAC, meaning you lead the government's healthcare team.
Yes.
What is being done to make financing for healthcare treatments more accessible?
Yes, well, you know, in the Philippines, unfortunately, like many developing markets, a big part of healthcare expenditures is out of pocket. You know, galing sa sarili nating bulsa, no? And I've seen, ever since I started covering healthcare, I've seen that statistic decrease over time, which is a positive development. From over 50% of national health expenditures, it's now down to 43 or 44%, and I anticipate that going down over time even more. Now, why? Number one, because PhilHealth benefits have continued to expand. And we're very happy working with the national administration, with the DOH, and with PhilHealth, that this year and last year we expanded PhilHealth coverage significantly. In many cases, PhilHealth was able to improve it by 30%, reimbursement rates. In cancer specifically, they offer a Z benefit package for people with breast cancer. That used to be, Maiki, the reimbursement rate for that was 100,000 pesos. 100,000 pesos, which is way, way below what it should be. They implemented an increase to 1.4 million pesos.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Right, so that's huge, right? So what that does is things like that, if PhilHealth is able to cover more, then eventually, hopefully, the common person will have to shell out less.
Yeah.
Diba? So PhilHealth increases more. Don't forget that there's also private insurance in the Philippines. And as you see more private insurance and private HMOs, they get more coverage, cover more people, more dependents, more employees, then unti-unti rin babagsak yung out-of-pocket spend. So I hope we get to a level of maybe high 30s, 30% out-of-pocket spend in the next few years. That will help.
And with the changes on the macroeconomic front, I mean, interest rates are coming down. We're in an easing cycle. How do you see that helping reduce
the burden?
The burden.
Well, you know, more than the burden, I think, Maiki, all of our studies show, and even government studies, show that if you do any pulse check with consumers, healthcare rises to the top of each and every Filipino family. Promise. Number one, number two, right? What is your most pressing concern? What are you saving for? So I think that Filipinos are really becoming more and more responsible for taking care of their own selves. That includes saving up for health. Now, so people are investing in health insurance, in dreaded disease coverage, and other things of that nature, which I think is positive.
Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta, and you're watching Basis Points, where we dive deep into the numbers and the stories that drive our economy and shape our world.
Stay ahead of the curve with the latest on financial dynamics.
The Philippines' trade deficit hits its highest level in over 2 years. The Philippine stock market continues to plummet. The Philippine Economic Zone Authority is on track.
Join us as we delve into the evolving economic landscape. Maiki Oreta, Basis Points, 9:30 a.m. Only on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel. This is Weather HQ.
Good morning. Welcome to Weather HQ. I'm Paolo Borromeo. Today's headline.
Get to know the latest weather update and forecast with information to help us understand important aspects regarding our climate.
Will help to prevent flash flooding.
To provide access to clean water and the system-level services to everybody who needs it.
Kung alala po natin, ang northeasterly wind flow po ay malamig na hangin po.
Whatever the weather, here on BNC.
Weather HQ, 9 a.m. The Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Good evening, I'm Pinky Webb. Tonight we ask the questions, what does the investigation cover? We tackle the issues.
The president's immunity from suit is absolute.
We clarify matters and we get on point.
Watch his press con. Sinabi niya na ayaw niya ng kudeta.
What is questionable about the AR, sir? The Vice President keeps insisting walang active threat kung hindi ako mamamatay.
Tignan na lang natin, mahirap pang pangunahan eh.
Pinky Webb, on point.
Ciao, mabuhay. You are watching The Word Exposed.
Prepare our hearts as we dive deeper into our faith and receive the strength from God's Word. Join Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle as he shares the reflection we need for the rest of the week.
We pray that the Word of God would find fulfillment in your life and His blessings be always upon you.
Every Sunday, 7 a.m., with replays at 3 p.m.
This morning, we talk about the vibrant art and auction scene here in the Philippines since it was established in 2010. Saleto Auctions has become a key player in the Philippine art market. Starting with just 10 artworks, it has come a long way with pieces by national artists including Fernando Amorsolo, Botong Francisco, and Angkyu Kok, selling well, at times even breaking records. With us today is Richie Lerma, Chairman and Chief Specialist of Saleto Auctions. Richie, good morning and thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning, Ferdy. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I mean, you know, we featured titans of industry and leaders in your industry, and you're one of them. So tell me, how did you start Saleto Auctions?
Well, I've been in the arts for close to 3 decades already. First in the academe, and then we made the move to entrepreneurship in 2010. The idea really started with, well, primarily exposure. And then there was a time my wife Karen and I, our co-founder, we spent time in Australia. And as you know, we spend a lot of time there. And that was when we first truly got to experience auctions on a regular basis.
Yes,
having been based
it's popular around the world, in fact.
It certainly is. And, you know, when it comes to valuable collectibles, that's how they would move these pieces. And so Karen and I thought, hey, this is something that I think they would enjoy in the Philippines.
Right.
A lot of people are quite surprised that we had no fine art auction industry to speak of, even
in the past.
Correct. 15 years ago. I mean, there were smaller auctions that were being done by people in the arts, but it wasn't set up the way that we had envisioned that it would be, to be ultimately a world-class auction
Right.
house.
So how people would move their pieces would be through galleries or like private agents and stuff like that.
So there was no mechanism for that, which was really like the epiphany, I think, which led us to start this. But you know, a lot of people are also quite surprised as well. I mean, when we started Saleto Auctions, it was really with, you know, just this idea and really the passion and the drive to do it. In terms of like business plans whatsoever, we didn't start it the traditional way. We just really believed in it so much.
So you just
we dove into it. We just
jumped the cliff, dove in, and then opened. I mean, I've seen the progress of your auction house. I mean, from where you were originally, it was a little, how should we say, cozy, and now you've got a bigger space, which is wow, a gallery as well. That serves as a gallery. How do you, as a person that may have items that I want to pass on or liquidate, let's say. I mean, let's call it spade a spade, right? But how do you guys gain trust from, you know, an owner to put their valuables in your auction house?
Well, I think our track record has been key in being able to gain that trust. But I think from the very beginning, and I think that was one of the most important factors that enabled us to start Saleto Auctions. Of course, my experience in the academe, having been the director of the first modern art museum in the Philippines, having been, you know, an art critic, you know, undertaken scholarship in the arts as well. So that gave people that trust. When they bring pieces to me, they would, I guess, honor the opinion that I would give. If I thought that something was valuable, they would listen, and if it was not, then they would, you know, simply walk away from it. And so,
but please educate us, because, you know, in the Philippines, obviously, there's only a small group of people that know about auctions. Right? Do you specialize in a particular field? Let's say some like Sotheby's and Christie's, they've got certain auction schedules only like dedicated to art pieces. Then they've got one just for jewelry. Or even timepieces, cars, even houses, right? What's your specialty?
Well, primarily it's Philippine art. I mean, we did pioneer the category called important Philippine art, and that has always been like really a marquee sale for us. I mean, of course, when you make that value judgment about something being important, people would, of course, wonder what is the criterion for calling something important. And it did help having that, you know, that academic background, that long history that I've had personally with art to say, well, ultimately, Saleto says it's important, and it's our it's really our role to be able to bring that forward and to essentially allow people to understand what underscores that importance.
What's the, obviously we know what the difference is between a gallery. Let's talk about art pieces, you know, that you can hang on a wall, basically, or put on your table. How does that differ from other art pieces that you might, you know, what's the difference between a gallery and an auction house?
So the gallery deals primarily with the, with the primary market, which is that the gallery deals directly with the artist. So when they bring artworks to the market, it's from the artist's studio to the art buying public. Auction houses deal with the secondary market, and that is you're working with collectors, estates as well, those that have acquired these pieces and over time have decided that it's time for them to let go for various reasons.
Talking about that, letting go. How does one approach an auction house such as yours and say, hey, look, I'd like to, you know, we don't have an attachment to this piece. How do they go to you and how do you deal with that?
Well, they give us a call or send an email to info@salcedoauctions.com basically saying, you know, we'd like to unload these pieces. We start off with photographs, we start off with certain details regarding the artworks. That goes to our specialists that gives a, you know, an opinion regarding the value of the pieces.
Okay, that's important. I was going to ask you, how do you evaluate an item?
That comes with, well, our long history has allowed us to build a database of prices for art, not just here, but overseas. Of course, Philippine art also being sold overseas, so we have access to that database. And so we're able to make that value call. Of course, there are other factors that come into play when it comes to giving an auction appraisal for the piece. Whether, I mean, of course, the importance of the artist within that market. And then later on, we're given the opportunity to see the piece in person. Then we check
That's the exciting part.
That's right. So we check the condition of the piece. We also find out more about the history of the piece as well, and that adds to the value. Of course, the overall supply and demand of the art. It's also an important factor in terms of
because it's super vibrant. I mean, I do get catalogs from you, and I skip a heartbeat. My heart skips a beat rather, because I'm like, oh my gosh, of course you can't buy everything, but let's say, like, this piece of paper is worth 100 pesos, right? How do you then value its starting bid price?
All right. Again, it goes with experience. You really look at this.
So there's no percentage. You just like slash it to 50%. That's
when
we start.
No, not at all. I mean, you know, of course, we always start with currently where does something like this sit in the market. You look at the you look at the you know, the outcomes of these sales over time. So that's one thing. And then you factor in the appearance of the piece, the subject matter, the condition. If it's something that's sought after now, perhaps its time had come, and perhaps now there's a bit of a lull in terms of that interest, or there's a growing interest in the piece. And so from all of that data, we go back to the prospective consignor and give a proposal. And then if there's a meeting of minds, it goes to auction. Yes, that's right.
But you know, what's the most successful auction you've had in your history?
Well, we're celebrating 15 years next year.
Wow.
And so, of course, in all that time, I don't think, just conceivably, anything will top the boceto for Spoliarium, as you remember, the study for the country's most important painting.
We were on edge.
Yes, that's right. And so were we, of course.
Because we were monitoring that.
Yes.
It was tittle-tattle for lunch, cocktails, dinner.
That's right.
That's the only thing people are talking
about.
No,
but that's the amazing thing.
What was the hammer price again?
That went for, it hammered at 63 million for a study, which is really amazing. It's a study. And then, of course, with the prior's premium, etc., it went to almost 70 million pesos. So that's the highest price for a 1 Luna to ever sell in the Philippines, and the second highest in the world. And so that was you know, an amazing outcome for a piece that was hanging in the apartment of this modest family in North Western Spain.
Well, folks, if you check out your walls, you might have a spolarium, valued at the same amount.
No, these were things that they had just simply acquired from a great aunt that had inherited it as well. And so they just simply admired it and took it with them, not knowing at that point what a valuable piece they had. They also owned the Felix Hidalgo La Pintura, which is continues to be the world record holder for a work by Hidalgo that sold for over 75 million.
I think it's worth the trip to go to their home and see what else do you have
That's
here,
right. I was wanting to see, can I see your basement storage? I'm sure there might be something else
your
there.
attic,
That's
perhaps.
right. Yeah, so a lot of these surprises have come to us, and that has been one of the most exciting facets of this work that we do.
Thank you so much, Richie, for coming.
Thank you, Ferdy, for having me.
And that is it for today's show. I'm Ferdy Salvador. Catch the Bilyonaryo News channel on Free TV channel 31 and on cable via Cignal channel 24. Thank you for watching the Bilyonaryo News channel, always on top.